I've got a book here that I'd like to read to you, and it's called The Story of Ferdinand. And this book is very, very old. It is 86 years old. Do you know anyone in your family that is 86 years old? I don't. So here it is. It's the story of Ferdinand. Once upon a time in Spain, there was a little bull whose name was Ferdinand. All the other little bulls he lived with would run and jump and butt their heads together, but not Ferdinand. He liked to sit quietly and smell the flowers. He had a favourite spot out in the pasture under the oak tree. It was his favourite tree, and he would sit in its shade all day and smell the flowers. Sometimes his mother, who was a cow, would worry about him. She was afraid he would be lonesome all by himself. "Why don't you run and play with the other little bulls and skip and butt your head?" she would say. But Ferdinand would shake his head. "I like it better here, where I can just sit quietly and smell the flowers." His mother saw that he was not lonesome, and because she was an understanding mother, even though she was a cow, she let him just sit there and be happy. As the years went by and Ferdinand grew big and strong, all the other bulls who had grown up with him in the same pasture would fight each other all day. They would butt each other and stick each other with their horns. What they wanted most of all was to be picked to fight at the bullfights in Madrid. But not Ferdinand. He would sit quietly under the cork tree and smell the flowers. One day, 5 men in very funny hats came to pick the biggest and the fastest, the roughest bulls to fight in the bullfights in Madrid. All the other bulls would run round snorting and butting, leaping and jumping, so the men would think that they were very strong and fierce and pick them. Ferdinand knew that they wouldn't pick him, but he didn't care. So he went out to his favourite cork tree to sit down. He didn't look where he was sitting, and instead of sitting on nice cool grass in the shade, he sat on a bumblebee. Well, if you were a bumblebee and a bull had sat on you, what would you do? You would sting him, and that is just what the bee did to Ferdinand. Ferdinand jumped up with a snort. He ran around, puffing and snorting and butting and pawing the ground as if he were crazy. The 5 men saw him. They all shouted with joy. Here was the largest and the fiercest bull of all. Just the one for the bullfights in Madrid. So they took him away for the bullfight that day in the cart. What a day it was! Flags were flying, bands were playing, and all the lovely ladies had flowers in their hair. They had a parade in the bull ring. First came the banderillos with long sharp pins with ribbons on them to stick in the bull and make him mad. Next came the picadors, who rode skinny horses and had long spears to stick in the bull and make him madder. Then came the matador, the proudest of them all. He thought he was very handsome and bowed to the ladies. He had a red cape and a sword and was supposed to stick the bull last of all. Then came the bull, and you know who it was, don't you? It was Ferdinand. They called him Ferdinand the Fierce, and all the bandoleros were afraid of him. The picadors were afraid of him, and the matador was scared stiff. Ferdinand ran to the middle of the ring, and everyone shouted and clapped because they thought he was going to fight fiercely and butt and snort and stick his horns around. But not Ferdinand. When he got to the middle of the ring, he saw the flowers in all of the lovely lady's hair, and he sat down quietly and smelled. He wouldn't fight and be fierce no matter what they did. He just sat and smelled. And the bandolerios were mad, and the picadors were madder, and the matador was so mad he cried because he couldn't show off his cape and sword. So they had to take Ferdinand home. And for all I know, he is sitting there still under his favourite cork tree, smelling the flowers just quietly. He is very happy. The end.